Hey YouTubers, it's your buddy Platt, and today I'm going to be brewing a Scottish Ale using a Brewer's Best home brewing kit. So let's go. So far in the journey through different home brewing kits we've tried, we've pretty much stuck to simpler kits, usually with cans of malt extract, hopped malt extract, so the hops are already in there. A lot of the kits we've done, like the Mystery Beer and the Brew Demon, and even the Brooklyn Brew kits, you've probably been able to find either maybe at your local liquor store, at a department store, Bass Pro Shop, something like this. Well, today we're going to step it up a little bit, and we're going to go with the Brewer's Best kit. If you've ever, took the extra step and gone to an actual brew shop, this is probably the kits they're going to start you off with. If you go inside and ask them, hey, I want to get into brewing, what do you have? They generally will start you off with this kit, and along with this kit, they'll generally sell you a couple of these 5-gallon buckets. One will have a spigot, that's your bottling bucket. The other is your fermenter. Usually the kits also include a capper for your bottles, a racking cane, and tubing, stuff to also help you bottle. These kits are a little more advanced. They're going to have the hops inside. You're going to do what's called a partial mash. You're going to get to work some real grains already crushed for you. Think of it as kind of a combination of what we did with the Brooklyn Brew Shop all grain kit and what we've done with like the Coopers and the Muntons with the extract. So that being said, let's jump inside and see what we got in the kit. Alright, the first thing I want to point out when digging through this kit is they give you a set of instructions. And all the kits do, but these are pretty detailed set of instructions. They give you a breakdown of the inventory in the box, but they also give you room to leave notes. The further you get into home brewing, the more you want to start taking notes when you do more complicated recipes, what have you. Also, they like to set up your brew day procedures and certain tips and whatever. And in the future, again, when you start doing more complicated batches, bigger batches, 5 gallons, maybe 10 gallons, maybe what have you, you'll realize it is a brew day. You'll want to set it up like that in order. And this is a great little instruction kit. They tell you different equipment you need, like I said, brewing tips, times to do certain things. So very important piece of information, and one of the first things you want to look at and dig through when you get this kit. Now let's see what else is inside. One of the great things is they give you bottle caps to brew your beer. They give you roughly 60 caps. In a typical 5-gallon batch, you're going to get roughly 2 cases of beer, maybe a little bit more, 48 bottles, so 60, just in case you have a couple of mistakes. They're going to give you a can of liquid malt extract, just similar to what we used, but the hops aren't inside. Then they're going to give you a bag of dry malt extract. Something we really haven't used before in the other kits, but something you'll probably see more in future kits and other videos we do. Then they give you the specialty grains. When creating a lot of these beers, you're going to work with a base of a base malt extract, but then specialty grains will tweak beers. If you want to start doing darker beers like a porter, stout, you want darker grains, and they've got them already measured out and already crushed for you, so they'll be ready to go. And they give you this grain bag. Well, basically what we're going to do is make a grain tea to start off with, what have you, and this little bag will hold all those crushed grains for you. They give you, of course, the yeast that you'll need, and it works specifically with the style of beer you're going to be working, and it's the exact amount you need. Same with the hops. we're finally going to get to work with some hops in one of these kits, and they've already got it pre-measured. And again, the instruction will let you know what time these hops go in. We have Willamette and Northern Brewer hops for this particular beer. And then last but not least, they give you some priming sugar. On this particular kit, we're going to do a batch prime instead of adding sugar tablets to each beers when we bottle. In a few weeks, after we're done with fermentation, we're going to use this sugar, this exact amount, to create a priming solution for our beer. And then they give you a couple of little coupons, little things if you want to buy their kits again. So now that we've got through the kit, let's brew some beer. So our first step is to take 2.5 gallons of water, and we're going to bring it up between 150 and 165 degrees. Then we're going to take our grains and we're going to put them in our grain bag. I suggest you have a little bowl like this underneath because you'll get a lot of dust. And then we're going to take our crushed grains and we're going to just dip it in like a tea bag. And you're going to want to dip it a few times because we don't want any dry pockets or lumps or clumps inside that bag. We're going to dip it a few times, and then we're just going to leave it in there for about 20 minutes or so. Now what's happening in here is the hot water is going to create a reaction inside the grains to get those sugars out and that just great malt taste out. If we were a professional brewer doing an all grain batch, all the grain would go in right now, but we're only doing the specialty grains because our base is the malt extract. This would be considered what they call a mash in. Again, because we're only using specialty grains, we'll call it a partial mash. But we're going to leave this in for 20 minutes, and you want to adjust your temperature accordingly. And we're going to want to hold it in this 150 to 165 range for about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and take it out. I suggest while this is going on, you're waiting on your 20 minutes, get everything else set up as far as getting ready for the boil. You want to take your liquid malt extract, go ahead and run it under some hot water, just like all the other cans of extract. And you'll also want to get your sanitation going. I've got sanitizer in the ferment bucket, my airlock, everything sanitized. So take this 20 minutes and get everything set up, and we'll come back and take out our grains. All right, so we've had our grain in for 20 minutes, and it's time to take it out. And you'll just want to let it drain over our pot. Now, you don't want to squeeze it. What happens is if you squeeze it is the exterior or the husk of the grain has tannins in it, and sometimes the squeezing will bring those tannins out. We don't want to do that. We just want that sugary goodness on the inside of the grain. So we're just going to let this drain a little bit. And this is where the bowl comes in handy. You definitely don't want this stuff dripping on your floors or all over your counters. And after we take this out, we now are going to go ahead and crank up our heat, and we're going to bring this to a boil. And when it gets to a boil, we'll come back and we'll add our extract. Alright, so we've got our 2.5 gallons up to a boil, and now it's time to add the malt extract. I hope you've heated up the malt extract because it's just going to make your life easier. So let's add the extract. Now you want to make sure to stir this in because you don't want that extract to get to the bottom and to scald. So nice constant stir. Get all that out of there. You do this long enough, you'll see that heating that extract really makes this whole process a little bit faster. to be sure to get all that extract out. We'll add a little bit back in there to get some of that out of the bottom. There we go. And then we're going to add our powdered or dry malt extract. Now this is where you want to be careful, and you always want to have extra room in your pot because this stuff can boil up on you real quick. So you always want to be cognizant. If it starts to boil up, be sure to cut off that heat as fast as possible. Get all that in there. We're going to get this all stirred in there. We'll cut down the heat a little bit, let this settle down. And once we get this all stirred in there, we're going to let this come back up to a boil, and then we're going to get ready to add our hops addition. So we've got our wort back up to a boil, and we're going to start the timer for our boil. It's going to be a 45-minute boil. Most traditional beers are 60 minutes, but we're going to do 45 for this particular beer. And at the start of the boil, we're going to want to add our Northern Brewer hops. Like I said, it's already pre-measured for us. So we'll just dump them inside, and we'll give it a quick little stir. Now you'll notice you'll get a little flare up in your brew pot when you add the hops. You want to be real careful not to have a boil over. If you think it's getting close, turn off the heat, or if you have an option like a little spray bottle, a little mixture of water, kind of takes the top off. But be careful. The last thing you want is a boil over, because this stuff's real sticky. It'll get all over your counters. So we have a boil going. It's going to last for 45 minutes. We'll come back in 40 minutes to add the additional hops, and then after that we'll finish up the boil. We'll be back. So we're 40 minutes into our boil, and we have 5 minutes left. So we're going to make our last hop addition, some Willamette hops. Will be our finishing hops, and we'll dump that right in, and we'll give that a quick stir. And like I said, we got 5 more minutes left in the boil. And when the boil's over, we're going to cut the heat, and I'm going to take our brew pot and throw it in. I've got an ice bath waiting to go in my sink, and we're going to allow that to cool down. While we do that, I'll show you something to do with your yeast to kind of give it a kickstart, get it going when we have our wort chilled and ready to go in the fermenter. So let's finish up the boil, and we'll come back to the yeast. So we've got our wort chilling in our ice bath right now, and it's going to take a few minutes. So I thought I'd show you something we're going to do on this brew kit that we haven't done before. All the other brew kits we worked with, we've just taken our little pack of yeast, and once the wort is at the right temperature, we've just sprinkled on dry yeast. And that's worked just fine for all our batches, and would probably work fine for this batch. But today I'm going to show you how to rehydrate your yeast, kind of get your yeast woken back up. They're about to go into a nutrient-rich environment, and we want to get them going. So I've got, in my little glass here, I got 4 ounces of warm water, mid-80s, low 90s. You don't want it too hot, but we're just going to take our pack of yeast. We're just going to pour it all inside and give it a little stir up, almost like you're making a little shake at home or something. But we're just going to stir that up. And we're going to let this set while we wait for the wort to cool. And it'll probably be another 15 or so minutes before we finally get our wort to temperature and then in the fermenter. And while that's going on, this yeast's going to rehydrate, reactivate, and it will be ready to go when our wort's ready to go. So let's let this sit for a little bit. We got our wort chilling, and we'll come back to wrap up. So in wrapping up, we took our Brewer's Best kit and we brewed 5 gallons of Scotch ale. We did a hydrometer reading like it suggests in the instructions, and we hit the top end of our range, so we should come out with 5 gallons of between 3.3 and 3.5% ABV Scotch ale. We're also planning to follow the instructions on fermentation. We'll leave it in the primary fermenter for about a week, then they suggest after fermentation slows down, roughly at the end of that first week, to rack it into a secondary fermenter and let that sit for about another week. Then we'll be ready to bottle, and remember we have the priming sugar inside, and once we bottle, we'll leave those bottles out in room temperature for about 2 weeks, and then they'll be ready to refrigerate and enjoy. So here in about another month, our Scotch ale should be ready to drink. Now, I hope you caught the part on the rehydrating of yeast. It's not always necessary. Like I said, all these other brew kits we've done before, we've just sprinkled dry yeast. But, like I said, we're starting to get into a little more advanced kit, and you want to start rehydrating your yeast. It just gets it ready to go for when it's time to go in the fermenter. Here in the future, I'm kind of planning on doing a couple of more kits like this Brewer's Best. They're kind of intermediate. We're leaving the kilo kits now. We're kind of going into something more intermediate. And this is all just to lead to the future where we're doing all grain brews and really some interesting stuff. It's almost as much for me just to get a little more practice than it is necessarily to show you, but I think we will kind of share the journey a little bit. Well, I hope you appreciate this video. If you did, feel free to subscribe to the video and also share with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Well, until next time, bottoms up.